edition of the Planning Commission meeting for the Village of Vicksburg. Time is 7 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order, and we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our next item on here is a moment of silence. Is there context there? All right, thank you. And Secretary Cox, will you please take a roll call vote?
Yeah, member Weil?
Present.
Member Lakenhorn?
Here.
Kissinger, it's okay. Here.
Chairman Schenkel?
Present.
Member Bailey? Here. Member Ball?
All right, next item on our list is the approval of this evening's agenda. Trust everyone's had time to review that, and I will call for a motion to approve that.
Member Kissinger, motion to approve.
Motion from Kissinger, support.
Support from Blankenhorn.
Support from Blankenhorn. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. And scheduled appearances? None. Thank you. Public official appearances? None. Thank you. And citizens' comments? There are no citizens present. We will move forward. The next item is our Planning Commission action items update presentation from Kyle Mucha on our zoning project.
Last month we went through and highlighted a lot of the changes that we have suggested for types of uses in the districts. We reviewed also the districts themselves and then the schedule of regulations or the dimensional standards for those districts. Since then, our team has finalized or gone through and updated the rest of the document, starting with Article 4, which is uses. In most of our zoning ordinances, we'll have permitted uses and then uses with additional standards. In Article 4 here, and I'll let Christian catch up when he can, we have items that we'll discuss that give additional context for the type of land use, such as like an adult daycare home. We'll have provisions in there, and Christian, I am on page 37 of the document, page 41 overall, if that helps. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So within here, our team has gone through and provided some context for different potential land uses that may not require special land use, but may have supplemental standards that should be met if a property is developed for this type of use. One being adult daycare home, and Mr. Schenkel, I am willing to go through each item line by line, or we can provide the highlights. I do know this is an important topic and document for the village. I don't want to rush or short anyone their time, but I do want to be cognizant of the commission's time as well. So.
Yeah, I think if we can hit the highlights, make sure that we're doing it service, but calling it out.
Sure. So we go through, we have regulations for adult daycare home, bed and breakfast, boarding and breeding kennels, and then Kristen, if you want to just follow along, I'm happy to stop and talk about any of these in more detail. Otherwise, these will be, again, uses that will have additional standards. Brew pubs, microbreweries, and distilleries in there. Cemeteries, drive-throughs, dwelling units, and this is where we get into a little bit for the multi-unit or senior housing as well, manufactured housing, where we'll talk about the density, access to roads, utilities, community amenities if they're applicable, through that. We'll have provisions as well for manufactured housing, mobile home communities. In here, accessory
And
dwelling.
these are special land uses, right?
Some might be, Mr. Schenkel, others will be permitted by right, but they'll have these additional standards that have to be met. So it's a step between just permitted automatically, meeting the dimensional standards, and then some that may have provisions where you have to be so many feet away from an intersection just to help with like traffic control. So that's what this intent is. There are
And so-
additional design standards, guidelines.
They would have to come before this body to get approval for that?
If they trigger the site plan review criteria that's later on in this ordinance for your guys' review, yes,
Thank you for that clarification.
of course. Funeral homes are in here as well, group daycare homes, we list home occupations or home-based businesses with the intent to allow for, growth of that nature, but not turn it into a full-blown commercial business in a residential district. So there are standards that a homeowner would have to abide by in order. Some of these count for like turning in part of your basement into like a woodworking shop and you sell it on Etsy. That's really the intent of a home-based business in there. Hotel, design and services in there. Mixed use, we've already discussed a little bit. Open air businesses, outdoor recreation, religious institutions, but we're also calling that places of public assembly. So instead of just calling them churches or synagogues, it'll be places of public assembly / religious institutions. And then the adult regulated uses as well in here. And then utility structures and substations, we have some provisions for in case we need to be cognizant of any kind of utility going in here, right? Vehicle dealerships, vehicle filling stations, such as a gas station, vehicle repair, vehicle wash. So those will be the additional standards for those specific uses. If it's not listed in here, they won't have an additional standard that has to be met for approval, if that makes sense. Okay. Questions on additional uses? Okay. Article 5 talks about general provisions. Thank you, Christian. 501 being accessory buildings and structures and uses, such as detached sheds, garages, so forth. We also list in here access to streets, meaning, what we're proposing is you need to have access to a public or private roadway. We don't want to create a parcel in the village that has no means to get into public or private access in that regard. There are a few parcels in existence right now, but obviously the intent would be to not allow for future land divisions that would still create a parcel that cannot be serviced by a public road. Administrative regulations, which then gets into land divisions and so forth, allowable and prohibited uses, barrier-free modifications, clear vision areas, the sight distances at corners to allow for vehicles to see further on. Decks, we have in here, this came about through discussion with the building department team as well. We're clarifying that where decks, if they're uncovered, can be placed on a property. Exceptions, provisions for floodplains. We have provisions in here too as well for keeping of animals. Mainly we're not permitting hogs and other kind of, more intensive land animals within the village limits in that regard. So that's what 508 discusses. We moved the lighting standards from elsewhere in the ordinance to general provisions in here with, again, the overarching theme that we don't want light trespass on adjacent properties. We want to protect residential uses that are adjacent to commercial. So this helps give some guidelines of what a developer or commercial / industrial operation would need to abide by in order to help mitigate any kind of light trespass. We offer some provisions for outdoor seating, principal building or use, private deed restrictions, public uses. We do have in here, and this can be for discussion if the commission so wishes, residential solar. It's our team's, I don't want to say belief, but current viewpoint that the village nothing's impossible, right? But most likely will not see a large utility scale solar project within the village limits just because we don't have the land mass for it. However, there are those residences who do wish to have solar panels on their property. So we have established standards for ground-mounted or roof-mounted. Again, this is for on-site consumption. This is not the utility scale. This is not the types of developments we're seeing on 94, that are hundreds of acres of solar panels. This is more strictly for on-site. I want to be a little green, so I'm allowing, we want to put a panel up on our roof. This is what that provision is for. Streets, roads, and other means of access, we provide context in here as well. Swimming pools, we provide for standards regarding swimming pools as well, with the eye on keeping users safe. This is taken from other code sections, such as the building code as well, so it adopts provisions from that. We list temporary structures and uses, provisions in here for that as well. Trash removal and collection, this is going to be more applicable to our commercial and industrial entities. Nothing that's really is changing in here. However, you need to screen the dumpster enclosure. We don't want that open to viewpoint from adjacent properties. Seeking that they have a concrete pad as well, that helps mitigate any kind of asphalt damage from loading and unloading. Voting places, not much to talk about there. Walls and fences, we carried over a lot of the provisions from our current ordinance into this, but put it into general provisions to having it be its own standalone section. Talking about how we measure it from height, what can happen in the front yard. One of the keys being here, the maximum height in the front yard, 4 feet. That helps reduce any type of vehicle obstructions from people backing out of their driveway. Side and rear yards can go up to 8 feet. We maintain the 8 feet, that's what our current ordinance has for some screening requirements between commercial and residential. 8 feet most likely will require a building permit because of the wind load calculations on that. We can drop that to 6 feet if there's concern. Otherwise, we carried over the 8 from our current ordinance.
Is for the front yard new?
Yes, that is.
What's currently?
I don't think we have any standards for it.
We don't have any. Okay. How could someone achieve the 50% opaqueness of that? Like with a vinyl fence or
Chain link.
just chain link? Okay.
Or split rail. There's different designs.
So my mind goes to like a privacy fence. You'd have gaps essentially. So okay.
And we're seeing this common across a lot of communities where they want the front yard to be able to still allow for fencing but not cause obstructions, especially some of our neighborhoods that are more dense and have shorter driveways. We want to make sure that people aren't backing up and causing side obstructions. We also talk about yard projections in here, about where decks can project into some yards as well. I know we ran into this about a year and a half ago with covered porches and so forth. So we have written in here provisions that allow for decks to encroach into some of our setbacks up to a certain percentage or up to a certain foot account. And that counts for decks at grade or less than 24 inches and also elevated decks. So again, that's a fair amount of information on general provisions. Is there questions on that? Article 6 talks about nonconformities. We have not really modified this too much. We already went through this about a year ago, 18 months. We have carried over a lot of those same provisions. Previously, we did amend this to get rid of that percentage cap for a rebuild. So this ordinance is carrying over the provision that you can reconstruct a structure to the existing footprint if it is damaged by fire, wind, tree limb, so forth, where a previous version capped that at 50% of the assessed value, which is burdensome to a lot of homeowners. So that has been carried over into the nonconformity sections as well. Beyond that, I believe it was more of a tidy up formatting version on this. Questions on nonconformities? Okay. Article 7, thank you, Christian. Talks about off-street parking. This mirrors the provisions that we discussed last month in the different districts. It's just put in a use table as well, something that's easier to reference initially. And then we have in here standards for off-street parking, such as parking waivers, bicycle parking, banked, and then reduction or elimination of required parking spaces, barrier-free. Some of these provisions do come about because of the MEDC's RRC standards for certification. So we have placed in here, well, I don't want to say low-hanging fruit, but items that are more achievable, such as parking waivers, bicycle parking as well. Now, we did in here expand bicycle parking to allow for a reduction in number of off-street spaces, depending on the number of, I don't want to say stalls, but stations for a bicycle park. So you put up five bicycle parking stations, you can reduce, at a 1-to-1 ratio up to 5 required parking spaces, with the intent to get people more non-motorized out there utilizing biking. So it's a trade-off for homeowners. Questions on that, because that is different than what we have currently. Okay. Bank parking, really in essence just allows for larger developers or property owners who have maybe a higher amount of parking required to set aside a certain amount as open space, and then as their need increases or their workforce increases, then they will turn that open space into their parking lot instead of having them have to pave 100 spaces up front. It's kind of a step program that they can do. That helps reduce stormwater runoff, helps with mitigation, keeps open space there. That way, in case the plans don't come to fruition, we don't have a large parking lot that is not utilized. Barrier-free standards, we talk about scope of off-street parking, layout and construction. This is standard across a lot of our communities as well for the types of spaces that have to be generated. Kristen, I'm on 75. Thank you, sir. So it talks about the dimensional standards. So if you're going to do parallel versus, a hard 90 turn, the parking stall dimensions. Right now we have it 9 feet and 18.5 feet in depth. Drive aisle widths, and then with 1 row versus 2 row of how wide that needs to be. I'm not one way or the other advocating for higher widths, but 9 feet is small, but it's doable for a width. Those are standard-ish across the board, 9 feet. Some areas have 10. You can kind of tell when you're in a parking lot, it's got 10 feet, it feels a lot more roomy. Others, yeah. So that's up to the commission if you'd like to maintain it at 9 feet. If you want to go larger, the only a downside of going larger is then you do need to potentially have more spaces or more land devoted to parking. So we really only would see a impact of that if you, probably 50 spaces or more, having that extra foot, just needing then more impervious surface. So it's a trade-off, depending on the type of use. So otherwise, right now, we'll keep it at the 9 and then 18.5 feet. All right. Christian, then I'm now on Article 8, which is page 78. Landscaping and screening provisions. A lot of this we carried over, we reorganized it, reformatted it to make it a little bit more user-friendly. Starting at 802, general provisions, we do talk about vegetation. This is something different than what we have currently. We can keep it or not, but we are requesting within this ordinance now to require a street tree, really what it comes down to. That's not applicable to any existing building right now, any existing business. They're fine. This would be if we had a vacant site, they want to develop it. We now, if they have frontage along a public street, we would ask that they put a tree or some shrubs every so many feet. That is very common across communities. It's not something we currently have, so I defer to the commission on if you want to add that or if you want to get rid of it entirely. So, but that would only be applicable to new developments that have street frontage. Any use that is a current building and they're just remodeling, this would not trigger because it's already an existing site. This would just be, again, those few parcels that we have within the village that are undeveloped.
So you say vacant land?
Yes.
Okay. What's the reason for that?
It helps with urban heat island, it helps with stormwater retention management, beautification to an extent as well, Mr. Schenkel.
Okay.
Again, it's up to you, the commission if you'd like to or not, but it does provide other benefit, CO2 reduction, green thumb, so.
Half an acre lot, put a house on it. gotta put
So it
some
wouldn't be,
trees on
it would not apply to residential.
You get one tree is in between
What
the
was
sidewalk
that?
and the road.
It would not apply to residential,
It doesn't?
no.
Oh.
We have provisions for walls and fences, and then also we included a waiver provision in here as well, if there's existing vegetation, so that'd be up to the commission.
What does it apply to?
Primarily commercial and industrial sites.
So,
Screening.
commercial downtown?
Probably not, Mr. Mallory, because those are existing sites.
Okay.
If it was a vacant lot, then it could trigger this.
Okay.
DPW.
Nope.
Okay.
The next sections we put in here as well, again, we carried over clear corner visions, again, just to make sure it's imperative that any, owner, operator, or property owner is understanding that we don't want shrubs and trees right at the corner. That helps. We talk about steep slope protections. I understand Vicksburg's pretty flat. This is a provision, though, that the MEDC likes to see within their standards, so this, in essence, most likely will not apply, but it's a good checkbox for us on the RRC standards. Same with accessory stormwater control features. May not see these come to fruition, but they're there to help with potential development as it relates to stormwater management. So rain barrels, bioswales, green roofs, and these are standards that the redevelopment ready community does like to see included. So again, happy to keep them in, happy to take them out, but with the intent knowing that we want to become certified through that, we wanted to add in some provisions. And then Rachel, to your question, 803 installation of maintenance also comes in now too. So we talk about seeding and sodding, protection from vehicles, off-season planting requirements, and then maintenance where, if something does die, we would like, to have them replace it. Then we get into landscape requirements for the table. So trees along street frontage, 1 tree and 3 shrubs per 50 linear feet of frontage. Parking lot interior would be 1 square foot of landscaping per 50 square feet of pavement. Parking lot islands, 1 island with a deciduous tree per 25 spaces. Parking lots that are less than 50 spaces are exempt. Parking lot perimeter, 1 square foot of landscaping per 50 square feet of pavement. So a lot of our business owners who have less than 50 spaces would be exempt from this requirement. And then we do offer footnotes in here as well that would allow for landscape islands to count towards some of these provisions as well. So questions or concerns on the requirements table? This is with, again, the eye that would be larger developments that would be applicable to this. Article 9, we talk about signs. Right now, the signs provisions of the village are a separate chapter. They're not part of our zoning ordinance. So we moved signs from general ordinances into the zoning ordinance itself. The overarching theme here is because of Supreme case law back in 2015, Supreme Court case law in 2015, we have to be content neutral. So we removed references to like real estate signs, development signs, construction signs, because that in legal opinion is a way to regulate content. So we addressed it as either being freestanding, wall sign, or like an awning. So we try to remove a lot of references that could potentially run us afoul of that Supreme Court case. We have exempt and prohibited signs, and that's page 84, Christian, if you're there. And we list out what would be exempt from this provision. So all signs, that are 2 square feet or less in area. Signs on a bus, truck, trailer, vehicle would be exempt. Public signs, including authorized signs by the governmental body or public utility for traffic control, those are exempt. Any sign required to be displayed by law or for safety and civil defense, exempt. public and private traffic control signs. Interior signs, so that would be if you have a large parking lot and you want to have, or a, let's say like an office development, interior directional signage on what way to go, that would be exempt in here. Historic plaques would be exempt. We also offer one sign not to exceed 32 square feet on a site with a building that is actively under construction. And we phrase that to get away from a development or construction sign. So once the building is done with active construction, that sign would have to come down. But integrated decorative or architectural features we have in here. And then all signs, this is based on our last discussion as well from last month. All signage within the Downtown Development Authority boundary, as adopted by the Village Council, shall be regulated by this ordinance. The Downtown Development Authority shall have the ability to set additional regulations for design criteria for any permanent sign erected within its boundary. So you're held to this sign standards, but then the DDA has the ability to set additional provisions within its boundary. Are we happy with that? Our team went round and round a little bit on this. We felt it more prudent just to have the entire village subject to this provision, and then the DDA would be able to then set additional standards for their boundary. Questions on that? Mr. Mallory, does that sound okay? Prohibited signs, we try to keep away from any that are going to be hazardous to the public, such as moving signs. If you're familiar with, I think it's Hudson's Fireplace in Portage, they have that big box one that spins. That's what we mean by moving signs. So that would be prohibited in here. Inflatable or balloon signs, billboards, sign using electronic display, video display, or projected images, we would prohibit in here.
Kyle, I saw one that had like neon or like tube lighting. So like if somebody wanted to kind of custom make like a tube sign for their business, that would not be allowable.
We had that inquiry recently, and we made the determination that it was a different type of lighting they were using that got away from neon itself, which is how we were able to authorize that. So it was the materials they used that allowed us to authorize it. So in this regard, it'd be a neon type itself. If you'd like, we can remove that. Okay. But I know there is one sign that has lighting that is, we'll say, structured architecturally, and we made that determination that that was permitted.
Okay.
We go into sign design standards as well, requiring general requirements, building code, sign maintenance. So this means you can't just let it fall apart and flap in the wind. Illumination, this is where, I don't know, we expanded on some of our standards currently. One being that we want to make sure we're not having any light trespass onto adjacent properties. So we did set a standard currently at 0.5 foot candles at the property line. That can be met depending on the sign company, but it would be kind of like a bright moon would be the intent of that. Bare bulb illumination, flashing signs, animation. We did add in a provision for animation. We don't currently have that. What we're stating here is that after a certain time period, and this can be modified by the commission, we're requesting that it be a single static image and not flashing through at night as well. Most businesses, because people aren't up and around, don't have an issue with that, but that is different than what we currently have, so I will welcome feedback on that. I put in here just 11 to 6, knowing that that's most likely when a lot of our patrons are not out visiting operations that may have a sign at night. We can modify that, we can get rid of it. Just wanted to add it as a starting place. Additionally, we have put in here that you can't display the message more than every 4 seconds. So it has to be static for 4 seconds before you move on to the next one. That is standard. There's some areas, not in Vicksburg, other communities where signs have displayed rapidly. And so vehicles, especially at night during this time of the year, have thought that there are emergency sirens behind them because of the intensity and the frequency of change. So that has prompted us to carry that over into here. And then intensity, we have put in here as well that after similar time, 11 PM to 6 AM. It does have to be brought down. That helps protect against any, unwanted light trespass as well. And it's 10% of the maximum illumination. Especially with new LED signs, they do get very, very bright, so this would set a cap at how bright they can be at night as well. Again, from this time period. We can get rid of the hours, we can keep them, we can modify them. I want to give a starting place, again, with the intent knowing that primarily between 11 PM and 6 AM, there's not a lot of traffic to observe the sign anyway. So I do want to pause there and get some feedback.
To kind of go back to the neon lighting, why are those prohibited?
It's a carryover as well. A lot of communities do not permit them. I don't have a good response for you, Chad, on that. Besides, it has just been a standard that a lot of communities have adopted, and I'm sure there's a reason for it. I do not know offhand.
We already have neon signs, a couple.
Yes, we do.
I think somebody that owns a business here has a neon sign out front.
That's why I was asking.
Can I be grandfathered in?
I mean, why do we need it? Is what I'm saying. Like, why do?
I mean, I'm not the only one. There's.
And I mean, the new signs that are done by the mills, the buildings downtown, they might not be neon, but they are neon. Like in my mind, you know what I'm saying?
They're definitely.
Neon as well. Okay, so if they are, I'm.
No, and the original neon.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they're neon,
Would you like that out?
yeah, I think so.
I think I would.
So you want me to remove 2? Christian, I'm on page 85. So then
I mean, I
can
like your sign.
remove
I
tube
like
lighting, whether
the signs
LED, neon,
downtown.
or
It's
other
like a
types of
thing,
lighting.
Where, are you in the
Yeah.
right section?
85 too. Yeah,
All
tube
right,
lights.
So that'll be deleted.
Yep, I'll strike that right now.
I mean, even the rim and rail, I think, puts string lights for Christmas up, like those big bulb string lights.
And it looks.
That looks awesome as well, right?
You just took them down this week.
Yeah. So I'm okay with
And then Chad,
removing.
that type of operation, we viewed it as holiday decoration as a
So it's,
freedom of
I see.
expression.
Okay.
So,
I see. Other than holiday, I see where you put that too.
So we're good in removing it?
Good?
yep.
Mhm. We're gonna have like XXX signs everywhere.
All right, then I'm moving down now to section 905. We have design, that's design standards, yep, so, right there. Measurement, Christian, I'm on now page 88. It would be just helpful to discuss the size of signs permitted in these different districts. You might have to zoom in one more, Christian, if you don't mind. Thank you. So wall signs right now for the C1, C2, and I1, again, those are the proposed districts, would have a maximum size of 100 square feet.
I'm gonna do math. What is that?
It's a 10 by 10.
Thank you.
It is a big sign. Or a total of 100 square feet of signage.
Okay.
So you could have multiple signs so long as you don't exceed 100 square feet. You happy with 100? Do you want to go higher or lower, or keep it?
Seems fine to me.
What do you see in other communities? Is 100's a lot.
100 is a lot. And then
100 feet
there,
wide and 1 foot tall.
there are people that do that. There are operations, Mr. Schenko, that do that. Chad, it varies. Some communities and sign operators will say that this will be restrictive regardless of what you put in there. Others work within the confines. The challenge some operations may get into is be more like the fighter or striker who have large signs because they want to be able to see from the road, a quarter mile away. So those types of entities may have, a hiccup with this, but generally speaking, 100 square feet is, yes.
Can I get a clarification on, I think you used the word animated sign?
Mhm.
Did that go with the neon sign?
No.
What do you mean by animated
If you're displaying moving pictures on your sign,
Does that
Like the
include
sign
like,
that's
yeah,
20 feet in back of me?
no, that would be an LED sign with an electronic message display. It would be if you had graphics, Mr. Mallory, playing on that, rain showers or
We do.
figures running. You're also exempt though too, because you're a municipality, in that regard.
But the historical society does.
And that's our property too, and our sign.
Okay.
The overarching intent behind not having animated signs is because of the driver distraction. So that's where they want more of that static image, no less than 4 seconds. Otherwise, it becomes flashing and distracting to vehicular operations.
personally, I like that. I think.
Yeah, I just don't wanna get in a situation where all of a sudden in the future we tell someone no, and I have to respond, well, we're exempt. Meaning, I don't know, I wanna, what the board feels of that clause as well. I see the thought process on having it. But, I mean, we already have multiple of these signs. I was approached, by a business along the Prairie Street corridor, reference the information where the company who put this sign in. So, I could see it. I agree with the sizing of everything, but I don't know others' thoughts on it.
I do like the static nature of it. Not saying that it can't be dynamic, but like essentially a slower roll is what you're saying. You're not just like boom, 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 image after image after image. It's got to stay there for a little while, right?
So is that within the writing of it, that sign's allowed, but the image has to be
Yeah,
up?
so Christian, if you will scroll to 87, I'm looking now at animation on 6. So it would be animated, changeable message displays can happen so long as that message is displayed for at least 4 seconds.
Okay. And so everyone knows here, even the lights go down, I think at 7 at night, we have these dimmed.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Freestanding signs for the C1, C2, and I1, we have at 64 square feet for maximum size, and then the residential districts at 48 square feet, being more the intent of entryway signs for residential districts.
For what?
Entryway signs, like development, can't call them. Yes. You know, or over by Angels Crossing,
Yeah.
it'd be.
Greensboro.
Mhm.
But this, I mean, the 48 square feet could also be on like my property. I could just have a 48 square foot sign on my front yard with whatever message I wanted.
We have provisions, Mr. Shanklin, here to protect against that, but I will make sure though that that's called out.
That sign has to do with, doesn't it, like, the temporary political sign or a yard sign?
That's regulated
not-
differently in here, yes. This would be a permanent freestanding sign.
I'll put some 4x4s in my yard and say,
Why would you have a
vote
permanent
for Jim Mallory.
sign in your yard, in your house?
Yeah, go right ahead.
What's that?
So why would you have a permanent sign in your residential house?
I'm sure that's a question that we would ask ourselves at some point in the
You're selling
future.
eggs out of your house, that's a permanent sign, is that what you're talking about putting out or something?
This is intended more for those residential developments that will have a gateway or entryway sign.
Oh, okay.
And then election signs are regulated differently within here.
So to Matt's point, could Matt Schenkel put a sign in his front yard and that's regulated by this?
I would have to confirm, Mr. Mallory. I
Okay.
believe we have provisions that would
Prevent
prohibit
that.
that, but I will go through with our team to make sure that,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yes,
is that-
no,
We
I
would
will-
want that prevented.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at, is right now, the way it's written is that's allowable.
Yeah.
Neighbors know if the flag's out, it's open.
I'm gonna come up with something creative.
I'll pitch into it.
Bill's sold,
Yes.
he wants me to do it now.
So-
I'm in.
Go fund me.
Shake
We get into height as well on here, with the intent being our commercial and industrial districts having taller signage, and then the entryway signs for residential neighborhoods at 6 feet high, and then 1 per road frontage, and the setback being 12 feet. 12 feet's our standard. Some communities do 10, others do 15. 12's not uncommon, but it's also not common. It's a kind of a random number, I feel like, but we can leave that. Awning and canopy, what district they're permitted in. Same thing with window, and then projecting signs on there. Window signs for the C1, C2, and industrial, we limit to 40% of the window. Our overall intent being that you still want to be able to see into the shop, but allowing them to still display what they would like within reason. No maximum height, because it's the window would regulate that. Same thing with number. The cap's going to be based on the 40% of the window. And then projecting signs as well, with some footnotes.
Projecting signs?
Is that like a candelabra?
Yeah.
So it's not, it's attached to the wall, but the wall's here and it's projecting.
Well, they're candelabra signs.
Yeah.
Oh, projecting out. I got
Yes.
it. Not projecting on.
No,
Yeah, my
projecting
brain's
out.
still going, what's a candelabra sign? I don't know what, I can't picture what that is.
It goes this
So-
way, your building's like this and it points.
Perpendicular.
It comes out,
It's like
okay,
perpendicular.
okay, I see.
On the old one, we used to have a thing that it had to be 8 feet above the thing. There's nothing on there about how high those projected signs could be.
We have that in here. We did add that.
Stars right there at the bottom of the table.
10 feet.
Mhm.
Okay, there it is.
We lost 2 feet.
Where was it?
Questions on the permitted size and height? Again, I made a note that we'll go back through and make sure that residential lots are clarified in this.
No 4x4s in your yard.
We're gonna have a celebration. I'm gonna tell you. Sign celebration.
We get into then temporary signs as well. Each shall be placed in a manner which provides 5 feet of free passage for pedestrians. All sign frames shall be constructed of weatherproof material. Again, with our intent that these aren't going to be cardboard out there for a long time. Placed 12 feet from any property line. Temporary signs shall not exceed a total of 16 square feet collectively. So, yes, Mr. Schenkel, if you'd like to have one, square foot, 16 signs, based on the ordinance currently as written, you could. Common signs that we see for election cycle are 2 to 3 square feet. So with 16, we felt this would give you enough for federal elections, Congress, Senate, so forth, without prohibiting people from expressing their views in terms of square footage. And then the next one would be no more than 4. So we can modify that number or get rid of it altogether and let the size dictate, but then there again, you could get 16 1 square foot signs, so.
So they can be in place for 90 consecutive days, and then if you exceed that, then you're subject to the permanent sign provisions.
I've seen people with political signs in their yards for about 5 years.
Yeah.
It's sadly a very challenging thing to regulate with residential in terms of enforcement of that. Especially when there is ballot initiatives and you may have a May election or May ballot, and then you have a primary in the summer and the election in November. Communities are finding it challenging to.
And if you take it down for one day, doesn't your 90 start over?
That's been a discussion as well, another. So that's what we run into, honestly, in trying to enforce this.
Take it down.
Okay.
So
It's tough.
it is tough. But we've also been able to tell if a sign's been out there more than 90 days, especially by it being weathered, beat up, and so forth, so. And then we get into some of the village core signage standards. For here, what would be developed, this might be, again, where the DDA would have additional provisions, but types of signage allowed would be sandwich board, awning and canopy, projecting signs, freestanding walls. So,
projecting sign limit of 8 feet is different than the other table? The other one was 10. EC.
Thank you.
John, has it always been 8 for projecting signs?
What's that?
Has it always been 8 feet for projecting signs or 10?
It was 10 feet.
It was 10?
I was wrong, because the problem was before, when they had it at 8 feet, when they raised it to 10 feet, because if you get icicles and stuff that drop down, people, they won't hit people when they go by. So 10 feet gives it 2 more feet higher,
Makes sense.
and you don't get,
Any of it?
if we lived in Hawaii, you
Yeah.
could do it at 8 feet.
Yeah.
There's weather permitting things that went with that.
I see. So we're gonna switch that
Yes,
8 to 10.
that has been modified.
So that's where I did see 8 feet was on one time.
Questions on village core signage, and I will pull this section out as well and send it to Mr. Mallory and a few others just for their additional review and consideration, but
What about things like lettering on the side of buildings? Like I'm thinking like, example I'm thinking is like the printer ink warehouse. They have a bunch of like lettering on the buildings. Are those all considered signage?
so the way we would measure signage would be a box around
Okay.
the letters. So,
Okay.
all right. Article 10 talks about performance standards. And here, this is, it's boilerplate to an extent of regulations that we have on here dealing with, surface water flow, dust, smoke, soot, dirt, odor, glare and heat, and then impacts from other activities. And then we list out procedures for determining compliance. So not so much as regulated by the commission, this would be more for staff or the enforcing agency, but that is listed within here. Questions on that? Article 11 is our PUD. Mr. Mallory has been gracious and sent this along to others in the field to just review and confirm. I will resend this to him and Mr. Wines to ask for their input. So I don't believe we would, at this point, Mr. Schenkel, need to go through this until we can get some feedback from others. But this does offer some clarity for us and give us more village-wide protections. With one caveat, we have added, I will add it, Mr. Wines, I am now on page 105 of the document at the very bottom. We did add in a provision, stating the existence of planned unit developments approved prior to the adoption of this ordinance shall be considered legal conforming and shall be beholden to the stipulations, if any, as established during the time of approval. Should an existing planned unit development seek to expand or make modifications not in accordance with previous approval, any new expansion of use, erection of building or structure shall be subject to meeting the provisions outlined within this article. So any already authorized PUD, so long as they're abiding by their stipulations and approval, can continue. This provision does not kick in. If they want to modify their PUD and expand it, change the stipulations, then they would have to now meet these standards. Our team felt that would be hopefully a good bridge between existing PUDs and any future potential ones in the village. Again, this section I will give to Mr. Mallory for his further review, and I believe we'll also send it to, but I'll defer to him, legal counsel, just to make sure we're clean on that. But we did want to account for existing PUDs in the village and make them exempt from this article.
Yeah, I will talk about that. I don't see D making it with staff's support. If there's applicable environmental protection laws, that they'll stand alone and speak for themselves. And as written, shall be protective of the natural environment. Now I'm in a debate of actually, is this development protecting it or not?
So this is an article within our draft that we will continue to work with staff on to make sure that it is meeting what we need to. Article, unless there's further questions on that.
No,
Article
no,
12.
that's the only one out of those that,
Okay. Article 12 talks about procedures, processes and procedures. This talks about site plan review. We carried over a lot of the recent modifications. One, again, being that there is the ability for administrative review compared to having to have everything come before a recommending body or approving body. So that is a provision that was carried over from our current ordinance. We also detail and outline the site plan review criteria and process for approval within here, what the application should incorporate, what level of detail they should have, as well as site data. And that is more thoroughly spelled out in here than our current provisions. Again, there is the relief mechanism up to a certain square footage that would allow for administrative review of a site plan compared to a full gauntlet like this. We also get into special land uses on section 12.04, which is page 115. Again, going through procedures and requirements for special land use, types of applications needed, expiration, and then also offering under subsection C, the standards for granting special land use approval. We have given stipulations for kind of finding the facts that would need to be provided. 1205, we talk about a decommissioning plan. I know we touched about that last month. We put some of it together in here. The highlight being, again, that potential land uses, if they do cease to exist, this gives the village the ability to draw on financial funds established by the applicant to render that maybe dilapidated building no longer hazardous. So this is a provision 12.5 that I fully intend will continue to discuss with staff and village council at their discretion. But 12.6 talks about variances and appeals, interpretation, and then the variances themselves. We also list out review criteria for a variance in here, applications and notices. So this is more of our guiding document for when we get to site plan, special land use, or variance requests. 12.7, we talk about amendments as well to, a site plan or text amendment and so forth. Filing fees, violation of penalties, records, public notice, and so forth. So that's, some of that is more of our, I will say, legal content that we'll have in there as well. Article 13 is administration organization, talks about what village council is, the village planning commission, zoning board of appeals, zoning administrator, performance guarantees, and more of what those duties and responsibilities are. Article 14 is a standard in a lot of our zoning ordinances. It talks about rules of construction in terms of shall, may, will, and how those words are interpreted and applied. And then Article 15 is definitions, which we've expanded on compared to our current standards. So that was a very high-level overview for 45 minutes. I know it's a lot to digest. As I indicated, we will continue to work with staff on the PUD provisions because those are pretty hefty. We'll probably ask staff again to review the sign ordinance, make sure we're not missing anything in that regard. But that is, in essence, where our new zoning ordinance stands.
So Kyle, what are the next steps with this?
Mr. Mallory has given us the timeline that he would like a public hearing next month. I will defer to him on that timeline, but I believe we should be in a good place for that, pending any kind of modifications we need, maybe with a PUD, but our section. However, we should be at a place we could move to public hearing next month.
Planning Commission public hearings.
Yes.
So the second Monday of February.
And any modifications between now
I think
and
it's on
that
February
state.
9th.
Yes, sir.
Somebody's gone.
So, any
Back.
modifications, Mr. Schenkel, I would anticipate to be more clerical or legal in essence. So,
Yeah, I'm back on the 6th. Okay. All right.
I mean, that's a lot. Are there any questions on that? I mean, I know it's a lot. Additionally, our team has, and I know, I'm sure staff has not had a chance yet because it was we were working until Friday to get it to them. We have generated a proposed zoning map. We're going to continue to work with staff on making sure that it's the way it needs to be prior to planning commission seeing that. But that is then revised. Our team went through last week, try to make some modifications too, to make sure that we're not creating any hiccups or errors potentially in it. So there will be a new zoning map that goes with this as well. And Mr. Schenkel, I do believe there was questions last month on the C2 district and residential. Our team, after that conversation, looked into it further. In order to help with any existing uses that may have a residential component that would be classified as C2, we are proposing putting a residential special land use in the C2 that would help negate any nonconformity status. So it would still allow that type of use, subject to special land use. That helps reduce a lot of barriers potentially for nonconformity status. If someone wants to get a refinance on their home, they don't have to find out they can't do it anymore. So that is an amendment from last meeting, allowing in this draft residential as a special land use in the C2 district. Again, that will help encompass any current uses that may have a business and a residential component now. Instead of making them strictly automatically non-conforming, it allows them to conform with those standards. So that is a change I wanted to highlight from our last meeting.
All right.
Mr. Mallory, is there anything I didn't mention that we've talked about, sir? I want to make
No.
So then our next step, Mr. Schenkel, will be, I'll redistribute this by the end of the week with those changes to the residential sign provision for standing signs. We'll ask Mr. Mallory to go through the PUD for us as well, make any changes that he sees or call out anything that we need to address further, and then work with Mr. Wines on getting the public notice out for that as well. And then otherwise, sometime between now and potentially the public hearing, if not shortly after final adoption, this document will be modified, not in content version, but just in potential layout and design. I know Mr. Mallory is still working, I believe, with the other entity for like the village website. So once we're able to get color coordination on that, we'll be able to incorporate those colors into here so they match. So, but that can be a separate item after this is adopted by council and so forth. This document doesn't have to wait for that color scheme. So that's where things stand with this. Again, it's a lot. We did a lot of it, in the past years. I would encourage you, if you have any questions, please reach out to Mr. Mallory. I would like to get those addressed before a public hearing, so that way you feel confident in it. Otherwise, that's what I got for you tonight.
Thanks, Kyle.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
And I think Christian and Kyle can correct me, but I think it's scheduled to be noticed publicly for the public hearing. Is that a 15-day notice or? So I think we're gonna notice it by next week.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right, our next item on our agenda is DDA action items, and this is our DDA grant requests. So we have 3 of them to review, and staff, Jim, are you looking for a recommendation to approve?
Yes, we would take them individually. The first one is Vickers. It does meet with the facade improvements, which is, I'll call it a investment of a permanent structure exterior, well exceeds into the 6 figures, the investment of the owner of the business. And it is our recommendation. It meets all the requirements for them to receive the $15,000 grant. Part of this, and as we go through it, will be requiring the business, obviously, to demonstrate with proper documentation that they have paid the contractors that have done this work, and both by whether it's certified check or some type of bank type record, but prior to us just cutting a check to them. But be happy to answer any questions. Reference Vickers.
So I guess that means they'll show you like a quote, because I noticed that the only one in here that just has a quote attached with it
No,
is Jasper's.
No, they have. It's a substantial amount of money, well in excess of $30,000.
So they've shown you backup already in that.
That per the grant requirements, it just would have to be a $30,000 plus investment, and I didn't feel it was appropriate to put in the packet the total amount, but it does exceed $30,000.
Yeah, I see that. I just noticed that with Jasper's, there was backup provided. The other two, there wasn't.
Yeah, well, and the third one we'll talk about, because that contractor's not going to start until the spring. So they wouldn't we won't cut a check until we can demonstrate, just because they provided a quote from a company, we're going to require these businesses to demonstrate to us. They cut a check, they transferred bank money, give us some type of certificated legal document that they actually paid that amount of money they're saying they paid before we'll cut them a check.
If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion for the Vickers grant.
Member DeBalt, I recommend that we approve the 15,000 grant for the Vickers project.
We have a motion from DeBalt. Do we have support for that motion?
Support from Blankenhorn.
Support Blankenhorn. Any further discussion? Since this is financial resources, we will do a roll call vote. Secretary Cox, will you please take that roll call vote?
Member Weil? Approved. Member Blankenhorn?
Approve.
Member Kissinger?
Approve.
Member Bailey? Member DeBalt? Member Cox, approve. And Chairman Schenkel?
Approve.
Second one is Jasper's, and that would be the next level at 7,500. They did their investment on the front facade. It has been completed. Like I said, I'll work with the owner of Jasper's to get the proper documentation of the amounts that were paid to these companies. And my recommendation is upon that, that they would be awarded the $7,500 grant.
Member Kissinger, motion to approve Jasper's with the $7,500 grant award.
We have a motion approved from Kissinger. Support for that motion.
Member Weil, I support the motion.
Support from Weil. Any further discussion? Secretary Cox, will you please take a roll call vote?
Member Weil? Approved. Member Blankenhorn?
Approve.
Member Kissinger?
Approve.
Member Bailey? Member DeBalt? Member Cox, approve. Chairman Schenkel?
Approve.
The third one, the only uniqueness here is the work is going to be after the winter months. It'll initiate this spring. I have talked to Mr. Miller, and we would carry this forward through the end of the year, not knowing. Again, it is on the facade of the building, and would be, if the amount indicated is actually what is invested, and I truly believe it will be, but we just need that documentation. After it goes, they'd be eligible for the second $7,500 grant as well.
So Member DeBalt, I recommend that we approve the $7,500 grant for the work being completed or to be completed by the end of next year.
We have a motion from DeBalt. Do we have support for that motion?
Member Cox, I support.
Support from Cox. Any further discussion? Secretary Cox, will you please take a roll call vote?
Member Weil,
Approve.
member Plankenhorn,
Approve.
member Kissinger,
Approve.
member Bailey, member DeBalt, member Cox approve, Chairman Schenkel.
Approve. All right, village manager report.
Yeah, my lone comment tonight is, it is on the agenda for the village council meeting on Monday, January 22nd. President Frisbee will place in front of the council a name to fill the vacant seat on the planning commission. It is a Vicksburg resident and a downtown business owner. And upon the support and approval from the council, I believe this planning commission will have back to 9 members at your next meeting in February.
Nice.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
I probably should mention that we did have 24 individuals in the building today representing local businesses with initiating our investment to be involved with the Southwest Michigan First Chamber. So that's moving forward, and we'll have more to come on that with specific dates of involvement in that. So, but I thought it was a shout out to Mike Moore. He did a very good job getting word out to the businesses and to the businesses for showing up. It was kept to an hour as we promised, and was very positive.
Great. Any comments from planning commission members? A little bit. All right, the time is 8:07, and I will adjourn this meeting. Have a good evening, everyone.